sports in this January 25th, 2024. Guys, we're getting started right off the bat with a fantastic guest. Let me get that email sent over right now, and we will get that over. We will get that started. Boom, just sent. Let's shoot it over. Perfect. So we have a fantastic guest right off the bat, guys. Right off the bat. Former LSU basketball coach, men's basketball coach, and now color analyst John Brady joins us right as we're starting the show. I mean, right off the bat, we're getting John Brady on. So that will be fantastic. Great guest. 4 NCAA tournament appearances, 1 Final Four. We're going to get to that in just a moment, though. But we will also review all the matchups from Tuesday and Wednesday night on the hardwood from the SEC. Also, we'll preview all 7 of Saturday's matchups as well. Then we're going to get in a little deep dive. We'll go around the SEC. Some personnel guys have been hired around the league at Auburn and LSU. We got Kayshon Boutte gambling on himself and some LSU games during his time in 2022. We also, Brian Kelly going to Michigan. I'll tell you why I don't think that will happen. It's a little bit of a lot of LSU theme here. We'll talk about why Jeff Lebby, or I should say why, what would be considered a fantastic first year in Starkville for Jeff Lebby. So just wanted to get that on, get that rolling right now. We will get Coach Brady on right off the bat. Let's see. We will get that off and running. Let's make sure we are live here. Let's get them rolling. So we usually don't have a guest right off the bat. Well, we will have it today just because it fits in the time frame. I mean, I remember Coach Brady from 97, 2008? A long time. So he is a fantastic guest for us. Fired up about Coach Brady joining us. And here he is. Coach Brady, what is going on?
How much you want to know? I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. LSU basketball. I help here in Baton Rouge with the junior college here, try to help them get better with their program. But, there's a lot of stuff going on. But I'm here to answer whatever you guys want me to talk about.
Well, Coach, first of all, I appreciate you hopping on. Coach, my first memory, you may be like, how the hell does he remember this? I almost went to so I'm from Ocean Springs, Mississippi on the coast originally. So obviously I'm not far from Baton Rouge, but a little icebreaker here. First game I ever went to in LSU, you're probably going to laugh about this. It had to be probably 01, 02, Alabama, and Mark Gottfried and them came to y'all. And it was when I think Rod Grizzard stood on the scorer's table at the end of the game. I kind of got into a little bit of a rift about that. I was thinking about that when I was talking to David, who knows Liz. I was like, first game I went to ever in an LSU game was that. I remember they kind of got into it at the end of that game because Rod Grizzard, I think, initiated all that.
Yeah, I got. I went over there and yanked the Alabama player off the table. And then in the press conference, I said, Mark Gottfried's got no class. And I got reprimanded from Roy Kramer, the commissioner of the SEC at that time. And then the next day at practice, Jacques Doucette from Channel 9 asked me, hey, Coach, when you got your letter of reprimand, what'd you do with it? I said, well, I wadded it up and threw it in the trash. Well, I got another reprimand for that. That wasn't too cool to say on TV. And Roy Kramer didn't appreciate the disrespect, but, it was all in jest. What the heck? You do what you think is right at the time.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I just want you to know, so I actually went. This is an SEC podcast. I know you probably hadn't listened to us before. We cover football, basketball, and baseball. I actually went to Alabama, worked in college football for 10 years. So when I was growing up, though, I followed SEC basketball. You were LSU basketball in my time growing up. I'm 34. So at my time, you were LSU basketball. So, again, I appreciate you joining us on multiple NCAA tournament appearances, 2006 Final Four participant, John Brady with us. But I wanted to bring it up. First question, Coach, because I feel like you kind of are in a similar situation to I guess what Coach DeBoer, Kalen DeBoer is doing at Alabama, you took over for a legend that was Dale Brown at LSU. Now, they had some rough years going back and look at it right before you took over. But what was kind of that transition? You taking over for a guy that was kind of a face of a program like LSU. What was that transition and the obstacles you had to go through your first few years there at LSU?
Well, taking over a program after a legend like Dale Brown's difficult enough in itself. But on top of that, we were on 3 years of probation when I took the job. And, they took 3 scholarships from us 3 straight years. We lost 9 scholarships over 3 years. We only could have 6 official visits for 3 years as opposed to 12 at the time. We weren't even sure the first year if they were going to allow us to go to postseason. And we won the appeal, and they said we could go to the SEC tournament about 10 days before the tournament actually took place. So there were a lot of different things going on, and I inherited a team of 4 players. We had this is a true story. Now I hired an assistant named Kermit Davis. Everybody, Kermit was at Ole Miss. He was my assistant here. He and Butch Pierre and Donnie Tyndall was on that staff that became the head coach of Tennessee.
Yeah, it was at Southern Miss, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was at Southern Miss as well. Yeah, and so my first team meeting, we had 7 players. And, I came in and read them the riot act and all this kind of.
Oh,
so we were going to.
There you go, Coach. We got you.
My phone rang. We with you?
Oh, you're good, Coach. You're good.
Yeah. And so after I read them the riot act, I went around to each player and asked if they wanted to commit to what we just talked about and change the face of LSU basketball and turn 4 straight losing seasons into winning. Well, 3 of them hesitated on the spot, so I kicked them off the team. So from 7 guys, you lose 3, you have 4. So we started that's my first year at LSU with 4 scholarship players. And when I gave a pep talk for my 4 scholarship players and they ran out of the locker room all fired up, it was dead silence there. So I tapped Kermit Davis on the leg. It's our first team meeting, right? I tapped him on the leg. I said, Kermit, you got any suggestions? He thought for a minute and he said, yeah, Coach, I got one. I said, what is it? Let's don't have any more team meetings. And that's how our tenure at LSU started.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Coach, what's some kind of thoughts so far on the SEC basketball season this year, specifically LSU? I know we're early, we're still middle or towards the end of January, but what's some thoughts going through your mind right now?
Well, I broke it down into 4 tangents here. I've got Auburn and Tennessee have kind of separated themselves a little bit of what I've seen. Mm-hmm. Then I got a group of 3 with Kentucky, A&M, and Alabama, and then I got a next group of 3 or 4: Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Mississippi State, LSU, and Ole Miss. And then the bottom 3 are Arkansas, Vandy, and Missouri. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the way it's falling right now. LSU, in my mind, is trending up. Yeah. As South Carolina has been the surprise of the league because they were picked dead last. I think Georgia is trending up a little bit. I like what Mike White's doing with his team. We just played them the other day and lost by 2. Yeah. Our team travels to Alabama this weekend, and that's going to be a real challenge for our squad. But our team has improved. The addition of Jalen Cook has helped us. We can score the ball in the backcourt. The biggest problem with our team is we have trouble rebounding against really physical teams that have some athleticism and size. We can't score on the post very well, and we don't have a rim protector. So our perimeter really has to play well in terms of taking care of the ball, making baskets, making 6 or 8 threes a game for us to have a chance to score enough points. And then we've got to defend really, really well. And we have some shortcomings, but Matt McMahon right now has got a collection of not great players, but good players playing well together. And that's the only chance we're going to have if we're going to beat a team on the road like Alabama this Saturday.
Coach, am I wrong in thinking this? Is this one of the deeper leagues and probably the deepest this league's been in probably 12, 15 years, if not a little longer? I think you could go 1 through 10, especially if it's a road game, is tough in this league. Even 1 through 11 at times. I think, and I'm not even including a Bud Walton Arena here because Arkansas is not very good this year. So I'm really thinking outside of Arkansas, Vandy, Mizzou, everybody else, you go to their building, it's a tough out.
Yeah, it is, and but I think in any case, in any league around the country for years, if you can go on the road and just split on the road,
Mhm.
whatever the games they are, the 6 or 8 you play on the road, if you could just split on the road and protect the home court, you've got a chance to have a special season. Now that's more difficult than talking about it, but
Yeah.
and I think as I've been in this a long time, it's the team's ability to win close games makes a special season over a significant season. So you can have a good year of basketball, but if you can win the majority of close games, steal you 3 or 4 on the road, you have a chance to have a significant season. And the best teams I've ever had found a way to win close games in the last 5 minutes. And I think that's the key to any team that's going to go far in an NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. Again, former LSU coach John Brady here with us, currently the color analyst for the LSU basketball broadcast. Coach, talking about your 2016, made it to the Final Four. Was there ever a point in that year where you were kind of like, yeah, I could. I know the tournament's a total crapshoot. It's about matchups when you get in
Yeah.
there. But was there ever kind of like, yeah, I could see us. We're hitting our stride when we need to be.
Well, that's a good question. I tell people this all the time. We were 8-5 after our preseason schedule going into SEC play. We were 8-5 now, and
Mm-hmm.
we'd had a really tough schedule. We played Connecticut. We played Cincinnati. Uh, we played some really good teams early on. So we get up, and I knew our team was good, but I'm not sure how good we were. Our first game was on the road in Bud Walton Arena in front of 19,000. That's when Arkansas had good teams. And when we were down at the half, we came back and outscored them 15 the second half, won that game by 9. And walking off that floor, I thought to myself, if this team can come into this place and win with 19,000, we have a chance to be pretty good. And then we won our first 7 or 8 games in the SEC. We were 14-2 and won the league outright. Florida finished second that year in the SEC, and they went on and won the national championship because both of us that year were in the Final Four. So that's how strong the SEC was then in basketball. But I knew winning at Bud Walton against a really good Arkansas team that our team had a chance to do something.
Because the Final Four that year, coach, was who? LSU, Florida, UCLA, Ohio State, or was
No, it was UCLA and George Mason.
George Mason? That was the year George Mason made it. You're right.
Yeah.
That was it. The next year, Ohio State. That was it. Coach, always wanted to ask this. Obviously, a basketball legend like you. What is kind of the preparation it goes in? I know you got your regular season, you got your conference tournament. I guess you get a little bit of a dip in the conference tournament because you're playing back-to-back days. But when the NCAA tournament comes around, you got preparation, you're preparing for that first round. What is the advanced scouting like for the potential matchup if you advance? What are you doing that day you have off if you advance with your current team? Like, how much advanced scouting, how much prep are we going? Or are we kind of like, hey, we need to be just playing well. Let's focus on us.
Well, with the availability to get tape and TV and all of the things on your opponent, I always made the team concentrate on the next game, and we prepared for the next game. But I always had another assistant coach looking at the next 2 possibilities that we may play, depending on who won. Because if you play a Thursday, Saturday, or a Friday, Sunday, you have a quick turnaround after that first game. The first game, you've got a week or so or 4 or 5 days to prepare for the first one. But it's the second one there that can get you if you don't prepare for it undercover and not let your team know that. So that's what we try to do is prepare for the first game, win it, because if we don't win the first one, you got no chance to advance. So we had a couple other assistant coaches looking at who we may play. One took one team, one took the other, but we concentrated on the first game. Then if we won that, we already had a breakdown of the next 2 opponents.
Yeah, so you had a surface level, like right there. We already have a base plan of what we need to do going in. We kind of have familiarity of what their strengths and weaknesses are.
Absolutely. And there's so much availability to get, school. And back then we could buy every game from a scouting service that had those games on tape. And we did that as well. And now you can go on the computer and pull up anything a team has done, every game, every play, every player. They have an evaluation of percentages of of what they do and when they do it. So it's a lot more advanced now than it was in 06.
Yeah, you're right. Technology's changed so much since 06. Two more questions, Coach. We'll get you out of here. Again, John Brady, former LSU basketball coach, joining us. Appreciate his time. Coach, two specific questions here. What would you say specifically comes to mind your favorite or most hostile environment you remember coaching at LSU that you went into during your time, the 10 years you were there in Baton Rouge?
Well, I think one, Bud Walter, when it's right, when that team is right there, those 18 or 19,000, they're right on top of you, and that's a tough place to play. The second place now that has died off because they haven't won was Vanderbilt. Back in the day when Vandy was really good, that's a tough spot to play, particularly when you had to stay on the end of the floor and coach your team on the other end of the floor when they had their backs to you and they couldn't hear you or just ignored you if they could. And on the offensive side, they'd take a bunch of bad shots and they'd say, Coach, I didn't hear you. That sort of thing. But now at Vandy, the team's not very good. The crowds have fell off, and now the coach can at least get up on the sideline and coach the team. Back then, you had to stay on the baseline. So, I would say that those two, in my experience, were two of the toughest places to play.
Coach, it was always a tough place back in, I feel like, your day, back in that era. At Mississippi State was always a tough because Stansbury had them kind of going at that point, too, on a consistent year-to-year basis.
At Mississippi State?
Yes. I always felt playing at the Hump was tough, too.
Well, Humphrey Coliseum is built where they're really close to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
They've redone it now, but when the architects came in to redo Humphrey Coliseum, they said the sight lines and the position of the seats, they didn't touch those because that thing was built a long time ago, but built the right way.
No, you're right.
But now the toughest place to play, in my opinion, is that place at Auburn. That's unbelievable.
Neville, they're right on top of you. Yeah, it's the
great venue.
Time.
Oh, and it goes straight up, and the students have the best seats, and they sprint to get in there because there's limited number of seats for them. And winning also helps any venue. But certainly what Bruce has done at Auburn, that situation down. I used to love to go in and play in those type situations as a coach.
Because y'all were there, Coach? Y'all were there 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago?
Yeah, we were there Saturday before last, and they popped us pretty good. But we came back and made a little game of it at the end. But Auburn's really good, and Bruce has done a great job there.
All right, Coach. Last question. I'm putting you on the spot here. Again, I appreciate you joining us. If there was a in-game call/decision in your career at LSU that you wish you could have back, which would it be? What situation, what game would it be?
I don't know. I don't know what that would be, but here's a strategic move I wish I would have done. In the 2000 team, we won the league in 2000, and we were very good. Mm-hmm. In our first round, we went to Salt Lake City to play in the NCAA Tournament. We won 2 games to advance to the Sweet 16, and we had to go to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And what I did, like a dummy, on a Sunday, we flew back to Baton Rouge and had to turn around on a Tuesday and go to Albuquerque. And what I should have done is just stayed out there the whole week, went from Salt Lake to Albuquerque, because our team could have practiced out there and been fresher. My dumb self, we flew back and then flew back again, and a long way, and the elevation of those places. We're already kind of used to it. We should have went on to Albuquerque, practiced there a couple of days. And the second thing is I did a poor job of is when we won the regional tournament in Atlanta. We beat Duke when they were number 1, beat Texas when they were number 5. Then we went to the Final Four, and I did a poor job of bringing our team back to earth when we played UCLA in the semifinals. And they jumped out on us pretty good early in the team. And the score wound up about 15. They had us like 17-4. And we played them even the rest of the way. So I didn't do a good job of getting our team back to prepare to go to the Final Four, because we thought, if you hadn't done that before, the emotion we had to win in Atlanta when we beat Duke, they were number 1, and beat Texas. I didn't do a good enough job of getting us back down to earth to go play UCLA in the semis.
No, that's all. Those are awesome answers, because it's like you said, it's away from the basketball floor, just kind of the game within the game, like you said. That I think a casual fan wouldn't think about from a perspective of travel and how that affects college athletes. And like you said, the mo of, hey, everybody's telling Big Baby and Tyrus Thomas and them, how great they were all week after
That's
going
right.
to sports. You said bringing these guys back down to be like, hey, guys, we still got 2 games to finish the mission.
Yeah, you're exactly right. But I never made a poor decision as a coach during the game. I don't know where you got that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, Coach, I appreciate you joining us, man. You did not have to come on. I appreciate you taking the time. Hell, this is my first time meeting you on camera. Me and you have to, if I'm in Baton Rouge visiting David or Liz, I'm about to give you a call. Me and you go get lunch or something. But I appreciate you joining us. I'll be watching the LSU Alabama game on Saturday night. You have a safe trip to Tuscaloosa.
Okay, thank you. Anytime. Appreciate it.
All right, Coach. Appreciate you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Again, former LSU basketball coach John Brady. Now he's a color analyst for the LSU basketball broadcast right now, but does a phenomenal job. He's coached at Samford. He was at Arkansas State right after that. Again, I told him he was the LSU basketball coach when I was a kid. He was LSU basketball to me. A lot of people think it was Dale Brown, which that's fantastic for Coach Brown. He's an all-time great at LSU. But when I was growing up, falling as an elementary, middle school, high school kid, I remember John Brady as the head coach at LSU. Also, I remember I was getting ready for prom when LSU was playing UCLA in that semifinal game he was talking about. I was a sophomore, I think. So, man, crazy times. But again, I appreciate Coach Brady joining us. But let's move on here. Man, that was a good interview. I like that. Good guy right there. But around the SEC, before we review Tuesday and Wednesday night's matchup, going to the gridiron, Alabama gets the commitment back from wide receiver from Saraland, Ryan Williams, his recommitted Alabama elite player, can score from anywhere on the field. I mean, he has verified true speed here, 10.4 900 meter, 21.28 200 meter. Could be Alabama's number 1 guy day one. Similar to Julio Jones. Crazy. They're both from the South Alabama area. Julio being from Foley, obviously Saraland right next to Mobile as well. But he could be their day 1 guy. Massive pickup for Kalen DeBoer. Needed it. Really needed it here because Auburn was already getting 2 of the top 3 receivers in the state, and Cam Coleman from Central Phoenix City, and then Perry Thompson from Foley himself. So you needed this pickup. But this feels like a very how Nick Saban got Julio Jones here a little bit. Got a little Julio Jones. That was a massive pickup for Coach Saban to kind of make, hey, we're coming. That was the classic Nick Saban quote in Julio's house, being like, hey, we're going to either win with you or win without you. And remember, if you remember recruiting all the way back then, when Rivals was in its heyday, it came down to Alabama and Oklahoma. And a lot of people were a little worried, like, hey, is Julio going to leave the state? But Alabama worked its tail off, ended up getting him. And also another under-the-radar guy, kind of got the Nick Saban era going, but didn't do a lot on the field, was another Mobile kid, a Viger kid, B.J. Scott, ended up being between Alabama and Florida. Remember, Florida back then was rolling with Urban Meyer. Came off a national championship in 2006, beat Alabama in 2008. That was Nick Saban's first big class. And I feel like anyone always is that big-time leader in that class. And I don't think it's what it was anymore because B.J. Scott was kind of one of the leaders in that class because Julio was a quiet guy. Again, a lot of Alabama fans probably wouldn't even remember B.J. Scott. But he is one of the few guys that was kind of the voice of that class, brought a lot of those guys together, helped that Mark Barron was from Mobile. A lot of core of that class was from Mobile. But again, I think this is similar. Got to get a big guy. And that was pretty easy to sell. I mean, look at the receivers Washington had last year. You had Rome Odunze, Jalen McMillan, and then you had Jalen Polk. I mean, you put on the film there with Michael Penix still in the Mach. And again, remember, in 2008, Julio Jones was the number 1 receiver for Alabama. Again, totally different eras of football, 2008 to now. But again, just wanted to bring that up. Massive get from that standpoint. We got some movement in the administration roles. LSU Director of Player Personnel, my former neighbor, Will Redmond, heading to Auburn to be the general manager for Hugh Freeze. I hinted at that on a tweet on Friday. They need someone. It sounds like from talking to people there, they have the money allocation at Auburn. They just need someone who understands how to allocate it. Sorry, let me rephrase that. They have the funds. They have the money. They have the dollar amount. They need someone who knows how to allocate the funds. I think that's where Will Redmond's going to come hone in, be a guy that Hugh Freeze can lean on because I think they lost out on some portal kids in December because they didn't have a plan. And like I say, in today's era, you've got it. It's not about how much money you have. Like Alabama, they paid the Nick Saban tax for a while. People came, we talked about it on this show for a while since Nick Saban is retired. I say a while, he's only been retired 2 weeks, but it feels like forever. But Alabama's going to have to learn how to allocate their money. It's not about how much there. Nick Saban's going to be giving some money to Yay Alabama or Alabama's NIL fund. But on to victory, Auburn's NIL collective. They can marriage that with Will Redmond, who's a very bright, organized individual. I worked with him at Kansas for 2 years. Does a phenomenal job. Has fantastic people skills. Organized. I think he's a good fit for what Hugh Freeze needs at Auburn. That should help them out. So you should be excited, Auburn fans. And then sticking with LSU, again, we've highlighted a lot of LSU stuff on this show. So if you're an LSU fan, we're talking about you a lot today. Austin Thomas, current associate AD for football at Ole Miss, looking like he may give it his fourth tenure ago at LSU as the general manager there. They're trying to hire a general manager at LSU. It's not official. If I had to predict, I think Austin Thomas goes there. From talking to him a little bit, sounded like for a while he'd been talking to a couple of admin guys, maybe Scott Woodward, but hadn't heard from Brian Kelly. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. He's one of my friends as well, would be fired up for that. That would be another great hire for LSU. He has it rocking and rolling with the Grove Collective at Ole Miss, with Walker Jones. They're killing it. They're really killing it. Will worked with him. So this is kind of a combination of Will Redmond leaving LSU to go to Auburn and Austin Thomas leaving Ole Miss potentially to go to LSU. But I'll keep you updated on that. Some rumors going around. Brian Kelly to Michigan, obviously, with Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers. That's been sparked up. I think Matt Moscona kind of got that thing rolling back around Christmas time, who does ESPN for LSU. But my question, why would Brian Kelly leave? I mean, I get the interest. He's a Midwest guy. I get the surface level stuff. Coached at Grand Valley State, Michigan, Central Michigan, Cincinnati, and Ohio, which is obviously Midwest, Notre Dame and Indiana. I get it naturally. I mean, but he's 62 years old. I think he wants to settle down in this job. Much better chance to win a national championship on a consistent basis at LSU than Michigan. And I know if there's any Michigan fans out there, probably throwing potatoes, tomatoes, whatever you want to throw at the computer screen right now. This guy's an imbecile. He says LSU's got a better chance of winning a national championship. We just did it. Did this guy not watch us 2 weeks ago? Yes, I understand. Fantastic season. Tip of the cap to the Wolverines, the true Michigan men and women out there. I salute you. National championship, congratulations. LSU set up for success. The last 3 coaches in the past 20 years have all won national championships in Baton Rouge. I think Brian Kelly has just as good of an opportunity as anyone outside of probably Nick Saban that has done it. If Les Miles and Ed Orgeron can do it, like them, both 2 good guys. But Brian Kelly can certainly do it at a more consistent level, especially with the playoff going from 4 to 12. You go 10-2, potentially maybe 9-3, depending on who your losses are in the SEC. They're going to get in. And then he's got a future no-brainer at quarterback from Belleville in Michigan. Quarterback Bryce Underwood committed in 2025. I think he knows what he's getting into. I think Brian Kelly knows he can win big at LSU, and that's why he left Notre Dame. It felt like he accomplished everything he could at Notre Dame, and he went to LSU because, in my opinion, LSU is still a top 2 or 3 job in the SEC. It is. Probably above Alabama when you consider the recruiting landscape, but you're the only big school in a loaded state of football talent. That is Louisiana. But LSU, like I said, as good as a job as it gets. Outside of some internal politics, you got to stay around. But Brian Kelly, I would be shocked if he went to Michigan at this point. From talking to people maybe a little bit around Christmas time, I don't know if that was Matt Moscona just firing everybody up. But I think if you really ask Brian Kelly, there'll be some initial interest, sure. But I think when you sit down, sits in his office, he leans back, he looks at his recruiting class, just finished 4th. They got their future 2025 quarterback and Bryce Underwood rolling around. I feel like he probably likes where he's at right now. He just hired a fantastic staff with Blake Baker as defensive coordinator, Bo Davis is the defensive line coach. I think he's got things going in the right direction. I don't blame him. Why would he leave? Why would he leave? And that's not a slap towards Michigan. But if you go to Michigan, they're just coming off a national championship. I'm not saying they fully expect that every year because that was their first national championship in 25, 27 years. But still, why would he leave? Just want to talk about that with obviously Jim Harbaugh going to the Chargers. Staying on LSU, former LSU wide receiver Kayshon Boutte has been charged for illegal online gambling. Getting this from @WAFB reported. He placed over 8,900 bets, including on some of the Tigers as well when he was there in 2022 while he was still in school. It says only 2 bets involved him directly. He bet on the Florida State game and on himself here. Those individual prop bets you have now. He bet that he would have over 85.5 yards for himself and a touchdown at any point in the game. He did not win that. He did not win this. But I sent this picture to my friends and stuff right here. I want to read this to everybody as well. Let me pull it up here. Here it is. So court documents obtained by the advocate says Kayshon Boutte opened a FanDuel account with his username. This makes no sense here to me. Kayshon Boutte 01. If I was, believe me, from working in football and being around compliance people all the time, there's yearly meetings talking to players about this. And especially in today's time where you can gamble just obviously as Kayshon Boutte was doing just at his fingertips. Can go place bets. Everybody does it on their phone, like our little computers right here. Why would you make your username Kayshon Boutte? Why would you be that ignorant about that? Make it up. Johnny Smith 2022. They're not going to catch on to that. Also, he bet on himself. We talked about this. The Florida State game is a part of an 8-leg parlay. He lost that. Didn't get over 85.5 yards and touchdowns. And all these transactions occurred within the LSU football ops building, which is a little interesting there. Because remember, they don't allow you to bet on those apps in the NFL. In any of those 32 organizations in the NFL's buildings, you're not allowed to bet in there. This apparently happened at LSU's building in Brian Kelly's first year in 2022. We'll see how this goes. I mean, LSU said they've done a thorough investigation. They've known about this since, June or July? So it's been past the summer they've known. Some people think that's maybe why Mason Smith was suspended at the beginning of the year. I saw that thrown out there. I'm not spreading that. So it sounded like LSU was on top of this. That's not like there were any other players involved. But over 8,900 bets. I mean, was he a bookie? Was he taking bets? I know a lot of betting degenerates. I know a lot of people who bet. Maybe I shouldn't use the word degenerate, but I know a lot of people who bet on college athletics, professional athletics, horse racing, whatever it is, even dogs. Bet on the Greyhounds out there. 8,900? I mean, that's easily over 100 bets a day. What is this guy betting on? In the midsummer, I would love to know what Kayshon was betting on. Maybe this was all football season, but if he's betting in the summer, what's he betting on? The Braves, the Astros in that area? I mean, that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable. Be interesting to see how that goes. Sounds like LSU kind of has their ducks in a row a little bit from that perspective. I think they were very aware of this for a while, and this is just now hitting. And obviously the media, myself right now, we're overreacting to it. When in reality, people in that LSU football office, like we've known about this for years. My favorite part working in college athletics is something would happen to one of your kids or a coach, and somebody's like, he's leaving. It's like, he's been leaving for a month. Like, granted, it's not their fault. They wouldn't know. It's just you're sitting. It's like, yeah, he's been off my coach's recruiting calendar now or calculator now for 2 months. So it's always funny. I bet some people in the LSU office are kind of laughing about it. But moving on, it's time for a little midweek basketball after going around the SEC. Starting off on Tuesday's action, Kentucky, South Carolina. South Carolina getting the 79-62 win. Let's just call it what it is. Cal got outcoached by Lamont Paris. He did. But you could tell right off the bat, South Carolina had a plan. They had a plan. Every time they put Big Z in, they brought in the big senior Josh Gray. They brought in the big senior, the big ugly Josh Gray, who could move Big Z around, get him uncomfortable in his first road environment. And also, I asked, from a Kentucky standpoint, why is Kentucky only shooting 13 threes in a game? They were one of the best shooting teams in the league. Them in Alabama. Why are they only shooting 13? They're a good shooting team. They need a higher volume of threes in every game. South Carolina, again, give them credit. Older, veteran, scrappy, veteran team with guys like Meechie Johnson. I mentioned Josh Gray. Again, their game against Alabama in Tuscaloosa a couple weeks ago was tied at half, and Alabama beat them by 30 in the second half. It wasn't a blowout from start to finish. If you just go look at the score, you'll be like, oh, they beat them. They're probably up 16 and put it on them in the second half. No. It was tied, and Alabama had a great second half. So as an opposing coach, South Carolina scares you, especially when they're at Colonial Arena in Columbia, but a massive win, probably the biggest win of the week, what them and Alabama did this week for South Carolina. South Carolina's starting to make a little case. They're like, hey, look, we're not just a November, December team. We're trying to get in the middle of the thick of this and maybe try to finish in the middle of the league, get the NCAA tournament. We'll look at the SEC standings here in a bit. But massive win for South Carolina. The other Tuesday night matchup, Missouri, Texas A&M. Texas A&M, we're just going to call it like we see it here, people. Getting the horrendously ugly. If you like shooting, this was not your game, but A&M getting the 63, 57 win over Missouri. Not the prettiest game in the world, let's be honest. A&M shot 28% from the field and won. They live on second chance baskets. They do. Second chance opportunities with Henry Coleman. That's just how they live. They crash the boards. Anderson Garcia, guys like that, they get their points there. And then if you can stop Wade Taylor and Tyrese Radford, that's just kind of how they go. Those two put up the shots. Henry Coleman and Anderson Garcia kind of clean it up off misses. Missouri just so offensively limited. And I kind of felt that way heading into the year. It's kind of played out that way. We should have seen this coming. I mean, you lose guys like Kobe Brown, who's an all-SEC player, Demoy Hodge, an underrated point guard for him, and essentially you replace him with like your 8th, 9th man rotation guys from last year. You just don't have a true bucket getter when you need it this year. I mean, Nick Honor, Noah Carter, Sean East, those are your guys right there. Those don't really put fear in opposing coaches' head from a game plan standpoint. They just don't really scare you. Nothing against them. That's just not really their role. But Dennis Gates, tough, just didn't really have a real score there. Both teams just sat in a zone and forced the other to shoot, which ended up great defensively for both teams. I mean, the final 63-57. Mizzou shot 27.6% from three. A&M 22.2% from three. So if you're wanting to see the Nets get lit up on Tuesday night, this was not your game. In college basketball today, this is a very low-scoring game, 63-57. But A&M gets the win. Missouri still struggling. From that standpoint. Moving on to Wednesday night's action. Alabama against Auburn. Alabama getting the 79-75 win over the Tigers at Coleman Coliseum. Phenomenal basketball game. Crazy, though. First, Janai Broome hit a three and the lights went off in Tuscaloosa. Or they hit it with the lights off. When Alabama, I guess, was doing this, they're announcing their starting lineup, they had the crimson lights come over that never came back on. It was a 17-minute delay. And Janai Broome hit the open three with the lights off. I mean, it counts. I mean, it was 3-0. It was impressive. Both teams are really good right now. I didn't feel really any different. Maybe just Auburn doesn't have a quad one win, and I wouldn't say they're such a totally different team away from Neville Arena in Auburn, but you just tell they're question the guard play a little more against quality competition. I'll leave it at that. Alabama defense making significant improvements up to 56th in defensive efficiency. This is a defense that was ranked in defensive efficiency at some point in the 90s. So improvement there. Mark Sears, Rylan Griffin, phenomenal. Rylan Griffin hitting 3 threes in a row. Kind of got Alabama's offense going in that first half to give them a 14-point halftime lead. Mark Sears, best scorer, him and Dalton Connect, I think, going at it for SEC Player of the Year. Don't forget Janai Broome. We'll talk about him in a minute, too. I mean, he had an unreal day as well. I mean, what do you go 25 and 10 boards? I mean, I think they could have went to him more. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Grant Nelson thought was one of his better games. Had a big follow-up late to push it to a 4-point game, kind of put Alabama ahead for good off a missed Mark Sears layup. I thought it was one of his better games. Got 9-10 rebounds. I thought defensively improved some. I mentioned Auburn's guards did not play well. Aiden Holloway did not shoot well. No one really did. Katie Johnson. Thought Trey Donaldson for Bruce Pearl could have played a little more. Now, I'll be up front. I thought Bruce Pearl got out-coached. From top to bottom in this game. It wasn't like Alabama did anything different. They can't guard the pick and roll well to come out in the shoes. They kept leaving Rylan Griffin open. Don't know why they didn't go to Janai Broome more early in the first half. That's Alabama's weakness, the front court. And I think Auburn's got one of the best front court depths in the league, especially with Janai Broome, best big man in the league. He could probably have done. He could almost went for 50 the other night. In 2 weeks when they play again at Auburn, you'll probably see a game plan adjustment. But I don't know what he was doing. I mean, he left Janai Broome out for 8 minutes of game time in the second half. I think from the 13-minute mark to the 6-minute mark. So about 6-7 minutes, he was out. I mean, he wasn't really in foul trouble. His last 2 fouls he got in the game where they were trying to foul to send somebody to the free throw line with seconds left. I didn't really get that. Thought he got Trey Donaldson out late when he was looking like he maybe could have been coming on. Thought Bruce really left some meat on the bone there. In his post-game press conference, he took responsibility for it, though. He said, I probably could have played Trey Donaldson a little more. But incredible atmosphere at Coleman Coliseum. Jay Williams probably didn't think it was a tennis match this time. But this is becoming a top 3, top 5 basketball rivalry in college basketball right now. Call me crazy. I think it's top 5 for sure. We'll get this matchup in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, 13 days at Auburn at Neville Arena. That place will be rocking. They'll be looking for revenge. But Alabama, 3 in a row over Auburn now in basketball. Nate Oates, 3-6 versus Bruce Pearl. But it is amazing what both those guys, Bruce Pearl and Nate Oates, have brought the state of Alabama and that rivalry, both their universities, Alabama and Auburn, from a basketball standpoint. It's definitely the best rivalry in the SEC. I think it's top 5 in college basketball right now. Call me crazy. Call me crazy. The environments in both these games are unbelievable every year now. Every year now. I mean, if one of these teams wins the SEC, that would be how many years in a row? 2020, 2021, Alabama. 21, 22, Auburn. Last year, Alabama. And then there'd be another team from the state of Alabama. If Alabama or Auburn wins the SEC this year, that is 4 years in a row that Alabama or Auburn has won the regular season in the SEC. It's phenomenal what both programs have came to. Alabama, I think, moved up to a 4 seed in the tournament, Lenardi said. I think he said the winner of that game moved up a full seed. But, man, impressive. Another under-the-radar matchup, I thought, from the other night. Florida over Mississippi State. Florida getting the 79-70 win. Florida really balanced last night. I love the way they scored the basketball. Maybe a potential springboard game for them there. Florida just really good offensively. Really good. Zion pulling, just limiting the turnovers. I believe I heard a stat. He had 1 turnover in his last 100 touches. I mean, that's unbelievable. They had 4 different guys in double figures. Mississippi State just been playing bad on the road, though. Just been playing bad. Lost at Georgia Tech, didn't look good. Lost at South Carolina. Game they maybe could have won. At Kentucky, they got blown out. And now Florida. They have a big matchup this week. It's a big game for Auburn and Mississippi State. It's at Humphrey Coliseum. It's at the Hump and Start Bowl. It's a big game. Maybe the biggest game on the schedule out of the 7 matchups in the SEC on Saturday. And to be fair to Mississippi State and Christians, I mean, those places aren't the easiest to play outside of Georgia Tech. I mean, South Carolina this season, it's been a little bit difficult because they're, like Coach Brady was saying, environments are tougher when the teams are good, obviously. Then obviously at Kentucky and at Florida are tough games. But then Chris Jan said after the game, Shaq Moore was out with some flu-like symptoms. So that limited them as well. So, again, it was a game both teams would have really liked. It's not going to hurt Mississippi State. They need to start racking up some road wins. I said on Sunday, I kind of felt like them and A&M were getting close to locking up bids. But I don't know. Mississippi State, they need a big win. And I know this one's at home on Saturday against Auburn. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I don't know. Mississippi State kind of need to get gelling right. I feel like Florida's starting to gel a little bit. They got a big one at home, too, against Georgia. It's big for both of them. Two big games there for both teams, for all 4 teams. You got Auburn at Mississippi State, Georgia at Florida. So that'll be important. But again, Florida getting a big win. I thought this was the most underrated matchup of the midweek slate for us was this Florida-Mississippi State game. But again, Florida getting the 79-70 win. Ole Miss against Arkansas. Ole Miss getting the 77-51 win over Arkansas. Arkansas just is what it is right now. They're one of the almost Sharpie. I said pencil them in, and someone else, an Arkansas fan, said you could Sharpie us in to Sad Wednesday. If you don't know what Sad Wednesday is, that's the 11-14 matchup, 12-13 matchup on the first day of the SEC tournament. The 4 worst teams in the league. To be fair to Arkansas here, though, Tremont Mark, their best player, and Trevon Brazile were both limited. Mark was out all game with a migraine, I think. Brazile didn't play in the second half. Muss is playing everybody. I mean, I went and looked. He's literally playing everybody. Almost everybody's got double-digit minutes. I don't know what's the thing. They get Kentucky at home this week. College game day is going to be there. I bet Muss, when he saw it at the beginning of the season, he's like, yes, because, he's a big marketing guy. Yeah, this is a chance for us to show our program. Dude, they're losing every conference game by double digits, staying there about. And he's got College game day coming to him when he was a preseason top 5 team, beat Purdue in an exhibition. Arkansas is the biggest disappointment in college basketball, and he's got the main show coming against a showdown against a Kentucky team coming off a loss. It's going to be angry, going to be Cal, and they're going to want to get a win, get back on that in their winning ways. And they're going to be all ESPN's going to be talking about is Muss and them like, hey, why are they failing so much? Why are they the most disappointing team in college basketball this year? And I hear Muss has got a are they going to extend him? Again, and I might want to judge one coach off 1 year. But again, this was a miscalculation here. It's kind of like they have some internal issues. It's an effort thing. They don't play hard. It's hard to watch Arkansas at times. But again, another double-digit 25-point loss to Ole Miss, who's a good older team. It's going to be tough to beat at home. Ole Miss is night and day difference at the Pavilion at home in Oxford versus where they go on the road. I mean, this game kind of is what it is. Nothing really X's and O's to break down here. Ole Miss was in a good get-right spot after having a rough week last week, losing at LSU at home, losing at Auburn big at Auburn. Ole Miss has their big 4, and that's about it. They have Jalen Murray, Matthew Morrell, Alan Flanagan, and Jamin Brakefield. Those big fours. They go as far as those guys take them. Ole Miss is going to play well at home this year under Beard. It'll be interesting to see at home. Both Mississippi schools very similar from that. They'll be tough to beat at home. On the road, though, they could lose to anyone in the league. But again, Ole Miss getting a big win, bounce-back game. It's crazy to say a bounce-back game, get-right game against Arkansas is present top 5. But Arkansas is what it is. Going back to their home combines, and the national spotlight's going to be on them this week because ESPN's biggest college basketball show will be there with a showdown against probably a pretty pissed-off Kentucky team. Then finally, the last game of the midweek slate, LSU at Georgia. Georgia getting the 68-66 win. Georgia just a confident team right now. Just freshman Silas Demery, Jabari Abdur-Rahim, Noah Tomlinson. Those guys are making plays right now. Made play after play at the end to finish that off. That was a big win for them. And they have a big opportunity in Gainesville this week to go get a quad 1 win. Georgia set themselves up to make the tournament as well. A little bit like Florida getting on a run there. Plenty of opportunities. Let me rehash this. Plenty of opportunities to get quad 1 wins in this league this year. Numerous. Like I was telling Coach Brady, 1 through 10, 1 through 11 road games in this league. It's like, woo! It's just 1 through 9 is all quad 1 opportunities. Plenty of opportunities to get quad 1 wins in this league. For LSU, I just don't know who can score outside of Jalen Cook and Jordan Wright. I mean, Tyrell Ward was out in that game. But again, from an LSU standpoint, they just don't have a lot of off. I mean, Jalen Cook, again, he's the straw that stirs the drink. They're a different team. They're not the team that lost to Nicholls State in preseason without him before he got eligible. Or Jordan Wright was at Vanderbilt. So those are their 2 guys. They have a tough trip to Tuscaloosa. Coach Brady was mentioned about at Alabama on Saturday night. But LSU just kind of is what it is. They go as far as those guys take them. Don't really have much post presence. Give up a bunch of second chance opportunities. They are what they are. They're improved. But it's 80 for LSU. Scott Woodward says this is year 1 for Matt McMahon, even though it's technically year 2. But Georgia, keep watching them now, guys. We're going to go over some net rankings here. I like what Mike White's doing with this Georgia team. Confident bunch. I'm excited for their game against Florida this week. But let's share the screen. We got some SEC standings to show you. Then we'll show you some net rankings. So the SEC standings right now, we got Alabama, Auburn, and Tennessee all tied at the top, 5-1. Alabama and Auburn both 5-1. Tennessee 4-1 with their lone loss to Mississippi State. South Carolina, Lamont Paris and the boys will probably be up for SEC Coach of the Year right now. Lamont Paris, if I had to be honest, him, Chris Beard, probably Lamont Paris, South Carolina, because they were predicted to finish last, but they're sitting there at 4-2, tied with Kentucky and Georgia. Ole Miss coming in at 3-3, tied with a couple other teams as well, with Florida, Texas A&M, and LSU. And then kind of there, Mississippi State better than this record, but they're sitting there at 2-4. Arkansas 1-5, and Missouri and Vandy both winless, with Missouri being 0-6. Vanderbilt 0-5 right now. Yeah, I think you got your top heavy right there. I'd throw Kentucky in there as well with that unit. They had a rough game against South Carolina on the road, but again, this league's tough this year. But again, you got a top heavy right there a little bit. Then you got a little cluster from South Carolina all the way down to, I'd say, Mississippi State, even though it's 2-4. So really from right there, I'd probably move Kentucky a little bit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think you got those 7 teams fighting for it. Truly locks in the tournament would be Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky. Those would be the easy 4 locks. Then you could easily see teams like Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Florida A&M make a run. That's 8. I don't think the SEC gets 9. I think it's going to be closer to 7 or 8. That's where you're at right now. You got Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky locks. And then you got the South Carolinas, the Georgias, Ole Miss, Florida, Texas A&M. I mean, LSU would have to go some massive run. I don't think they have it in them this year. And then Mississippi State. That's going to the standings. Let's talk a little net rankings. Talk a little net rankings right now. Tennessee comes in. Well, let me preface. A lot of people don't like to talk about net rankings. They say it's still too early. This is what the NCAA Tournament Committee judges. And it's January 25th, guys. We're getting to the middle of conference play here. We're going to bring it up. But Tennessee coming in at number 4th in the net rankings. Alabama moves up from 9th to 7th after their win at home against Auburn. Alabama's third quad 1 win. So they're at 7th. Auburn sits at 8th. Kentucky comes in at 22nd, Texas A&M 39th, Mississippi State 42nd, Florida 43rd. And let's stop right there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams in the top 50 of the net rankings. And South Carolina comes in just outside at 51st. This is where I get a little concerned for Ole Miss. They're going to have some quad 1 opportunities, but they're sitting there at 63rd. They need to get that up. They need to get a quad one win on the road. And I think they're going to have some opportunities. They start Saturday at Texas A&M at Reed Arena. That would be a good start for Chris Beard and his squad. Georgia, same situation as Ole Miss, but a little worse. They're sitting there at 78. They need some quality wins. LSU, I think they're just too far gone. I don't see them going to get those big wins they're going to need. I mean, they'll have opportunities, but just their lack of rebounding and outside their scoring of Jalen Cook and Jordan Wright, I don't see it. And then we talked about Missouri, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt. Long shots. Missouri coming in at 126th in net. Arkansas 127th. And Vanderbilt coming in at 234. So really right there, again, like I mentioned, you like Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, Kentucky. Top 25 net teams right now, they're locks. A&M, a few wins away, I think, from being locks, at least from an 8-9 seed from a floor standpoint. Mississippi State probably in that same boat. Throw Florida in there too, because you got A&M at 39, Mississippi State 42nd, Florida at 43rd. And I think you got some work for South Carolina's got the best. Ole Miss needs a win like South Carolina got against Kentucky. They need something like that. Then I think you need some. Ole Miss and Georgia are going to need some wins if Georgia doesn't need a couple. But wanted to go over the net rankings for you. Let's bring up Saturday's schedule. Let's go over that before we bounce back over to Jeff Lebby and Mississippi State. Let's go to Saturday's schedule. Here's Saturday's matchup. So the first one, Georgia at Florida. I told you I was intrigued. 11 a.m. Central Standard Time Zone on ESPN2. Right now, currently, let's look at the notes. Ken Palm has this as a 70% chance of winning for Florida right now. I would like Florida at home too. I like Florida at home right now. I think they're kind of starting to hit some strides. Sorry, pulling up the old net rankings here. I like Florida here. I really do. I think Florida, I think that was a springboard game for them. I really do. I think it was a springboard game for Florida against Mississippi State at home this week. They got 2 games at home. They need to take opportunity. Give me Florida. I think Florida wins that one at home. Missouri at South Carolina, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone on the SEC Network. Missouri, I don't trust any of their scoring. I really don't. I think South Carolina's got some gritty older dudes. I like Michi Johnson. I like Cooper. I like BJ Mack if he can get going at time. Josh Gray's got a roll. Give me South Carolina at home. It may not be pretty because they're coming off a big win against Kentucky. But even what do you have here? We got Ken Palm has this as a 78% chance of winning for South Carolina. So 78% chance South Carolina win here. I'd agree. So me and Ken Palm have agreed here back to back. And this is a big underrated game right here. 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone, Auburn at Mississippi State on the SEC Network at Humphrey Coliseum. Currently right now, Ken Palm has this as a 64% chance to win for Auburn. Auburn hadn't really played well. They lost to App State. They lost to Alabama. I know who they play at in conference play so far. At Vanderbilt. Oh, really? That's it, right? At Vanderbilt, at Alabama. Let's see. Who am I missing off the top of my head? They've had to have played another road game. Let's see. And at Arkansas, but Bud Walton Arena isn't what it used to be, guys. So I don't know if that's some deep part. I know it was the first conference game, so it was probably a little more ruckus than it would be in the last few weeks. But still, it's a big test for Auburn and Mississippi State. Good opportunity. Big opportunity. Mississippi State needs to go 1-1 this week. You don't want to go 0-2 again. And I know they probably have the hardest slate to start off conference play of anybody. They played Kentucky, Alabama, Tennessee now. They'll play Auburn. They go at Florida. And then they go at Ole Miss midweek next week. So Mississippi State needs to get this win here. It's not a must win, but it'd be a good opportunity to grab a win. I think Auburn gets it done, though. I think Bruce Pearl has a mature older group. I think he's going to prove like, hey, guys, I know you won 11 straight games, but Alabama proved to you like, hey, we're not that damn good right now. And if they are good, I think they're good. I think he's trying to send that message to his team. I would expect him to have a chip on their shoulder at Mississippi State. But don't be shocked if Mississippi State wins, but I'm going to go with Auburn. Tennessee at Vanderbilt, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone tip on the SEC Network. Currently, Ken Palm has this as a 94% chance of a Tennessee victory, and I agree. There's not much to break down here. This is at Memorial Coliseum. As you heard Coach Brady, used to be a much tougher place to play when they were better and the sidelines weren't the same. You had to stay on your bench. But Tennessee, a complete team. I expect Tennessee to win this game. Totally expect Tennessee to win. They didn't play midweek this week, so it's their first game since they beat Alabama handily at home last Saturday. It should probably be a ton of orange at Memorial Coliseum on Saturday. I expect Tennessee to get a win there. So I've agreed with Kim Bomb across the board there. We're agreeing 4 for 4. Kentucky at Arkansas, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone on ESPN. Currently, Kim Palm has this as a 73% chance of a Kentucky Big Blue win. I would agree. So Arkansas team's quit. I see no effort. I don't know if Tremont Mark's still going to have his headache or what's going on there. It doesn't look like there's much energy. What's Devo Davis been doing? He looks checked out. Kentucky's coming off a loss at South Carolina. If they want to stay in the SEC championship race, they can't lose this to a bad Arkansas team. I know it's 2 road games this week. They need to go 1-1. I think they get it done. College game day will be there. Cal will know how to motivate this team. Arkansas is done. They're done. Put them away. I said they were done after the Auburn game, and I've been right. Give me Kentucky, even though it's at Bud Walton Arena. Give me Kentucky. Agree with Kim Palm again. Then a 7 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone tip, LSU at Alabama on ESPN. Right now, Kim Palm says Alabama has a 91% chance to win. I'd agree. I think this could be a little bit of a sleeper game for Alabama, coming off that big win at home against Auburn. But if, again, Alabama, they needed that Auburn game to stay in the SEC race. They can't. You got to hold serve. If you're going to go compete for an SEC regular season championship in basketball, you got to go 8-0, I think. Or bare minimum 7-1 at home. I think you have to. NATO says it too. You got to hold serve at home, even against the good teams. LSU's one of the sitting there at 10th, 11th in the league. At LSU, which Alabama will have to go to a little bit in a couple of weeks, will be tougher. But again, outside of Jalen Cook, Jordan Wright, I just don't see a lot of scoring there. Give me Alabama. Alabama couldn't play a good game. I could see Alabama not playing a good game. I'll be interested to see what the spread comes out tomorrow on this one. But I like Alabama at home. And then finally, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time Zone. I think this is the second most interesting game of the day. At Ole Miss at Texas A&M at Reed Arena on the SEC Network. Currently, right now, Kim Palm has it as Texas A&M with a 70% chance of winning this game. Man, this is one I'm totally split on. Ole Miss has not been good away from home this year. They've not been good away from the pavilion. Something tells me Ole Miss plays well, though. Chris Beard going back to the state it kind of built him a little bit in Texas. His time at Texas Tech, his time in Austin. I'm going to go against Kim Palm here. It's the only game I'm going to go against Kim Palm. I think Ole Miss wins this. I think Ole Miss gets it because Texas A&M can play sloppy. Remember, they won an ugly. They only scored 62 points the other night. I think this is the first real winnable road game in conference that Ole Miss has had. LSU isn't great, but I saw that. I saw that was a total look ahead because that was at LSU and at Auburn back-to-back. They were probably thinking, hey, man, we got a chance to go play well at Auburn. It was Allen Flanagan and Wes Flanagan's homecoming going back to Auburn. They had got embarrassed at Tennessee. So this was the next big opportunity. This Ole Miss and this older group could peek ahead and be on a national scene. Let's get back right after getting embarrassed against Tennessee. Well, they forgot they had to go to the PMAC, and they lost that game because I thought it was a total look-ahead game. This is different. I think this is an opportunity. I like Ole Miss here. So across the board in the SEC on Saturday, I like Florida getting the win at home against Georgia. I like South Carolina holding serve at home. Again, it could be ugly, similar to the Alabama game after a big emotional win for South Carolina, but they'll beat Missouri at home. I think Auburn-Mississippi State's going to be a war, big physical war. Tolu Smith, Janai Broome, it'll be a fun matchup. But I think Auburn gets it done. They need that road win. Tennessee at Vanderbilt, it should be all orange. Could look like Thompson-Boling Arena. There'll be so many fans there. But I like Tennessee there. Kentucky at Arkansas. I don't care if it's at Bud Walton. I like Kentucky. LSU at Alabama. Again, similar to South Carolina. I think it could be an ugly game coming off an emotional win from Nate Oates and his team. But I like Alabama. And then the one game I'm going to disagree with Kim Palm. Ole Miss at A&M. I think Ole Miss gets their big road win here. I'm going to go with the Revs and Chris Beard here. But those are my predictions for the 7 matchups in the SEC basketball slate on Saturday. Let's head to our last segment of the night before we get you out of here. Again, I appreciate you joining us. Hey, go like and subscribe, rate, review. Tell us how much you like us on YouTube. If you want to tweet at me, tell me some things I can improve on. I'm all for it. It's free. Keeps the channel free. Just press like, subscribe, leave comments. Like I said, we're on all podcast avenues out there on Apple and Spotify. Go give us a listen. But Jeff Lebby, what will be considered first-year success in his first season in Starkville? Long way to go, a long way away from August 31st, 2024. Eastern Kentucky game, that's the first one. But was talking to a buddy today, Mississippi State guy, but what would be considered a successful first season for Jeff Lebby? We talked about it. We both were kind of like 5, 6 wins. I'll pull up the schedule here. But I think the first key to success for Jeff Lebby was staying himself a little bit, staying within himself. He's calling the plays, and I think that was key. I think that was the right decision. Could that change at some point as he gets a little bit comfortable in himself being that CEO type guy that I think you have to be in college football? Sure. But I think your first year or two, you come in, you set the standard of what you want offensively. You get your blueprint within your program. You get some stats on your resume that can help recruit the portal and high school. So I think that's his first step. That was his first great decision, was keeping play calling. That's where he's made his bread and butter, was calling plays at Baylor, UCF, Oklahoma. But I like that. Looking at the roster, it looks like it's going to be Baylor transfer Blake Shapen. The roster's got banged up a little bit. Lose some key guys at running back. Seth Davis coming back from a knee injury could be okay. Wide receiver Creed Whittemore. I don't know if you want him as your number one, but he could be okay. Kevin Coleman. You got Jaden Wally if he steps up. Tight end, I don't think they'll use them a ton there. Offensive tackle, Malik Ellis, Leon Bell, Albert Reese, Marlon Martinez, a couple of defensively. I mean, it'll be key. Remember, Alabama outside linebackers coach, special teams coordinator Coleman Hutzler is the new DC there, so that'll be interesting. You got I like some of their edge guys, Deontay Anderson, Dontarie Russell, DeMonte Russell. I like those guys. I mean, just they lost a lot. I'll be real interested to see how this team is. This is about to be a true developmental first year for him, if I'm being honest. It really will be. Let's pull up the Mississippi State schedule. Oh, who we got to chat down in here late. Any thoughts on the issues going on in our side? We'll come back to that question. Sorry about that, CCP Bucks. We'll come back to that question here. But pulling up, let's go to the Mississippi State football staff there. We'll pull that up, share the screen. This is just, I wanted to look over Lebby's staff here with you as we rolled through. It's just their full-time coaches. So obviously Jeff Lebby. You got Anthony Tucker, assistant head coach, running backs. I mentioned Coleman Hutzler coming over from Tuscaloosa at Alabama. He's the defensive coordinator, linebackers coach. Co-DC Matt Barnes as well. That's a Lebby connection, safeties coach. David Turner, I think that was key, keeping him there. He's a long-time SEC defensive line coach. He was on staff, I think, with Joe Moorhead, Dan Mullen, Zach Arnett, Mike Leach. So he's been at Mississippi State for a while as a defensive line coach. Former receiver Chad Bumpus, development will be key there. Cody Kennedy, offensive line coach coming over from Arkansas, one of Sam Pittman's right-hand guys. John Cooper, tight ends coach. Matt Holisek is the quarterback's coach. Corey Bell, a longtime assistant in the SEC, had some time at Louisville as well at the corner position. And then Cliff Odom coming in as the assistant coach, special teams coordinator. And then a guy I like the head strength and conditioning coach hire here. Shawn Williams, that'd be key. He was at Oregon, former Alabama running back. I think he'll do a phenomenal job. Heard people at Oregon raving about him. But let's also let's go to the Mississippi State schedule. Just wanted to rock and roll here on the Mississippi State schedule before we move in via ESPN. So appreciate you, ESPN. But again, like I said, long way away from that August 31st matchup against Eastern Kentucky. I think a must win here, obviously. Eastern Kentucky is a must win. But at Arizona State, you got to win that game. You got to win that game. I know it's Kenny Dillingham's second year in Tempe, but I think Jeff Lebby has to win this game. It should be a tough pill to swallow in a non-conference matchup. Toledo, not an easy matchup, but they should get a win against a MAC team at home. Then you get Florida. How will they be? That's technically could be a winnable game if you're trying to get to 6. Billy Napier and them coming in hot. Roster's probably a little better than Mississippi State's right now, but it's also at home. It could be a winnable game. At Texas, probably a loss. At Georgia, a loss. A&M, first-year coach with Mike Elko. It's at home for Mississippi State. Toss that up kind of in the category for Florida, even though I think that roster at A&M with what they've done in the portal is going to be better than what Florida's done. Arkansas, kind of reeling a little bit. That's a win. You feel like they need to get 2 out of 3 of those home games against Florida, Texas A&M, and Mississippi State. Obviously, got to get the UMass game. At Tennessee will be tough. Missouri at home will probably be tough with what they haven't come back in. At Ole Miss will be tough. So let's be honest, ranking the wins in order. Eastern Kentucky, let's be optimistic here. Eastern Kentucky win. At Arizona State win. Toledo win. Let's call Florida win. That's 4. Texas loss. At Georgia loss. Let's say A&M's loss, but they get Arkansas. That'll be 5. UMass would make it 6. And then I think they probably lose out after that. At Tennessee will be tough at Neyland. I know they're breaking in a true freshman quarterback in Nico Amalavea, but shoot, he'd already played 10 games at that point. So he's not even really breaking it. He's a second-year guy at that point or third-year guy. So I have a hard time seeing them win in Knoxville. And then Missouri, what they have coming back, Brady, Cook, Luther Burden, I think they're still better than Mississippi State, even though it's at home. And then at Ole Miss, just going to be tough. Ole Miss's roster is better. 6, I think, is optimistic. But it's going to be, you got to get to the 3 games they got to lock in on in conference plays. There's 3 home games. Florida at home, A&M at home, and Arkansas. Got to win 2. Got to win 2. And then again, you have to win the Arizona State game at a conference. You need that. So I think that's kind of the floor here would be Eastern Kentucky win. You lose to Arizona State. I'm going to give you Toledo, but you lose to Florida. You lose to Texas. You lose to Georgia. You lose to A&M. You lose to Arkansas. You beat UMass. Floor could be 2. I think floor's 2. Ceiling is 6 next year. So realistically, you look in the middle. It's 4 to 5 wins. Again, I don't think Mississippi State fans should be too upset about that. Call me crazy. I know people are like, well, you should be able to win faster now in college football with the transfer portal. I understand that. I do understand that. I understand that. But I just read you some of those roster names on offense and defense. Not a lot of talent there. And that's not Jeff Lebby's fault. That's not. I know there's some notion that Mississippi State might be able to completely, and like I said, immediately turn it around. Jeff Lebby will have the Bulldogs moving in the right direction sooner rather than later. I got asked that today. Yes, I think he will. But theoretically speaking, that's plausible because of the way the transfer portal works. But it's just not guaranteed. Let me tell you that. The spring transfer portal window will be interesting for Jeff Lebby in that first year. Is it possible he could go flip some guys and kind of get it rolling? Sure, but that's not guaranteed. It's important to stay patient with this season in 2024 if you're a Mississippi State fan, especially going into it. I just gave you, I think the floor is 2, ceiling 6. Some may say the ceiling 7, but I don't think you get all 3 of Florida, Arkansas, and A&M at home. But I think you can go into the season with the expectation that things might be a lot more fun. I think Blake Shapen, the transfer quarterback from Baylor, fits this offense pretty well. Could be fun to watch. And I think that's key and why it's important that Jeff Lebby's calling plays. If they're only winning 4 games this year, it needs to be a fun 4-win product. Be good on defense. We don't have the depth, and we've mounted up some injuries. We got a first-time defensive coordinator in Coleman Hutzler. It needs to be I know winning only 4 or 5 games isn't fun, but it needs to be kind of an exciting product. And that's why I like Jeff Lebby keeping the play calling duties at least his first, second year. I think he's going to have to give that up at some point to get to where he wants to get. But I'm actually really intrigued by the direction that Lebby is taking this program. And in year 1, I think we'll see plenty of potential fun things to dissect and take away. I also think we're going to see some rough moments. Like I just mentioned, got a first-time DC with not a lot of depth on that side of the ball. And we'll see what happens with Blake Shapen. They lost some key guys. Lost their best receiver, lost their best running back. It'll be interesting to see how this team takes some experiences and some bumps in the road. But I don't think you can assume that everything we see in this first season with Lebby will indicate everything that Lebby's tenure is going to be at Mississippi State. Let's put it that way. I suspect it'll be in the right midst, or I suspect it'll be in the midst of season 2 under this new coaching staff. So probably sometime in the 2025 season to really get a better idea how this program is going to look long-term for Lebby. It's kind of like Scott Woodward said, I mentioned it earlier with Matt McMahon and LSU basketball. This is kind of year 0 for Jeff Lebby. First-time head coach, first-time defensive coordinator. I keep mentioning that with Coleman Hutzler, which is sticking with me, especially with that personnel. When you look at the roster, I think it's year 0. If he gets a 6, it's impressive, especially when you're adding you're playing Texas as well. But I'm not one to tell people where to allocate their money. But I also add this into it. It's not just all coaches. But I'll gladly provide you with a number of issues that's just outside the coach's fault at times in today's game. Again, I'm not telling you where to allocate your money, but I am one to say that if Mississippi State is going to succeed, it's going to be because the Bulldogs have an innovative head coach leading things, and also because Mississippi State's committed to succeeding in the NIL space. Their rival across the state in Oxford is killing it with Walker Jones and Austin Thomas. Mississippi State needs to incorporate that somehow. They don't have big money people in the state of Mississippi. There's not a lot of billionaires in the state of Mississippi, especially that are alums of Mississippi State. They got to be creative in how to utilize that. Maybe a little bit of some money ball type strategy there. But again, just wanted to bring up what is going on at Mississippi State year 1 for Jeff Lebby. I think this is year 0 for him, in my opinion. Stealing that from Scott Woodward, like I mentioned, how he used Matt McMahon at LSU. I think this is year zero. A lot of new faces on the personnel, on the roster, on their top 40 of the roster. Remember, that's where you win games. It's not your first starting 22. If you've listened to us before, you've heard me say that a million times. It's not your first – it's not your top 22. It's your top 40. I just don't see a lot of depth on that roster. And again, you got a lot of fresh faces. He's a first-time head coach, getting his feet wet doing that. Also, first-time DC, Coleman Hutzler. There's going to be an adjustment. There's going to be adjustment. But we rolled through the schedule together. I think any realistic people would agree. Ceiling 6. Got to get 2 out of 3 of those home matchups against Florida, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. The must-win is week 2 right off the bat at Arizona State. Floor could be 2. Worst case if you lost all 3 of those games. But again, I don't think this first season is any indicative of what is going to happen for Jeff Lebby. I like the hire. I like that he's sticking to his guns, at least for this first year. I'd probably go second year if I was him, calling the offense until you feel comfortable, feel the lay of the land, and start feeling what it is. But again, it's not going to matter in today's college football landscape unless they have a plan from an NIL collective standpoint. Remember, I've talked about this all the time. You see more GM, general manager positions getting hired. Will Redmond taking over the new general manager position at Auburn. That'll be key. Hugh Freeze has all the money he needs. He just has to learn how to allocate it. Potential associate AD for football at Ole Miss, just down the road from me, could be making his 4th appearance at LSU, where Austin Thomas and Walker Jones with the Grove Collective have done a better job than anyone across the nation from top to bottom. But we're going to get you out of here. But late question by CCPBUX. Gotten here late. Any thoughts on the issues going on in Arkansas? I'm assuming basketball. Yeah, just the biggest disappointment in college basketball this year. Just I wouldn't say they missed on all those portal kids because, I mean, I like Keon Minifield coming out. I like from Washington. I like Tremont Mark coming over from Houston. Trevon Brazil's healthy after his knee injury last year. Devo Davis was a senior, had a hell of an NCAA tournament, helped them beat Kansas in the second round. You liked everything they had coming back. It just hasn't gelled for whatever reason. And I see a lot of quit. It's not effort. I mean, Musselman, I saw yesterday listening to his post-press conference, said he didn't think Ole Miss beat him from lack of effort. They just beat him. And to be fair to that, Tremont Mark didn't play, and also Trevon Brazil didn't play in the second half. So I get it. I just think the issues are internal. I just think I think he's doing everything he can to find that rotation. He's playing so many guys. He's playing so many guys across the board right now. Go look at the box score. I don't want to pull it up because we're towards the end of the show. But I was looking at it today. I think he played like 10 guys with like 9, 10-plus minutes. He's just trying to find some rotation. But it's not getting any easier as they got Kentucky coming to town. But I appreciate you joining us on this episode of Mach 10 Sports. We had a fantastic episode. Former LSU coach John Brady joined us. We reviewed the Tuesday and Wednesday slate on the hardwood. South Carolina and Alabama, the 2 biggest winners this week, with South Carolina getting the big win against Kentucky and Alabama getting the big home win against Auburn. We got a great slate this week. 2 fantastic under-the-radar or my 2 favorite matchups on the hardwood this week. You got Auburn heading to Mississippi State, trying to get their first big road win. And then you got Ole Miss at Texas A&M. I got the Rebs getting their first big road win. And then we talked about what to expect year 1 from Jeff Lebby. And my overall consensus, give him time. Don't judge him on year 1. I think this is really year 0, him getting his feet wet. But again, go like, subscribe. Channel's free. Tell us where we can improve this channel. Again, I appreciate you. You have a fantastic weekend. And thank you for joining us on this episode on Mach 10 Sports.